301-230-0980 is the phone number. What do you see as the best plan for QB1 for the Commanders in 2024? We don't even know who that's going to be, but assuming that it's the second overall pick in the draft, I tend to lean towards that guy shouldn't play, and we just live with the results for 2024, knowing that it's going to pay off in 2025 and beyond. But what say you? 301-230-0980. Let's go to Tim. Tim, thanks for calling. Get us started here on The Hoffman Show.
Hey, good evening. How you doing?
Doing well.
All right. I think it's totally ridiculous to think that you're going to draft a quarterback at number 2. Whether it be a quarterback, a lineman, runner, whatever you want to draft that high, you pencil that player in as a starter. You're not drafting nobody that high to sit them. The old saying, you don't learn nothing with a clipboard in your hand. You learn by going out there to play. I believe Peyton Manning, he led the league in interceptions his first year.
That is true.
But okay, you learn something, you trash that first year, and move on. Unless you have a luxury of talent, so let's just say San Francisco 49ers, and they took Trey Lance. If you have a quarterback in place and you don't need to take him, but you plan him to be your future, fine. That's a little different story. But most of us who are drafted in the top 5, we're drafting in the top 5 for a reason, because we're not a good football team. You got to play that player. You don't sit them.
But Tim, why, like, if I'm telling you that the evidence suggests that often that you do actually learn a lot from a clipboard, that outside of a guy like Peyton Manning, a lot of quarterbacks who struggle early don't turn it around, that a lot of the best quarterbacks did get to sit for a while, like, would that change your opinion? Because I would tell you that's what the evidence suggests, is that actually you do learn quite a bit sitting, even if it's for a short time.
I don't disagree with you about you can learn something from sitting, but the best way to learn is to play. That I think the evidence will back that up 100%.
Okay, well then what's Tim? What would be your evidence then? Non-Peyton Manning. If I take Peyton Manning away from you, what would be your evidence that learning on the job is the best way to develop when I offer you Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, etc., of guys who have sat and been successful in the league?
What you just said right there was totally different. Let's say Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith,
sure,
Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre. I can go on with everyone you just named. There is a bona fide starter, you could say a Pro Bowler or a Hall of Fame quarterback in place, and you got that quarterback who said, hey, this is going to be our future. That is totally different than when we don't have a quarterback. We're trying to build for the future. If you drafting someone that high, you have to play them.
All right,
just to sit them so you can say, well, odds are you're throwing them to the wolves and it's going to be a horrible year. A bad year is not necessarily a bad thing.
Well,
hey, get out there and learn.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Tim, thanks for the call. And I think like Tim has actually I'm kind of poking at Tim's argument there to enhance the conversation. To be very clear, Tim has gotten to the very heart of this argument very quickly, which is, yeah, if you're learning from Rodgers, if you're Love, or Favre, if you're Rodgers, Alex Smith, a pro's pro, if you are Patrick Mahomes, then maybe that is worth it. And also, by the way, the team is still going to be pretty good. What happens if the guy in front of you is Marcus Mariota? And my retort to this would be, I don't care who the guy in front is. I care about what's best for the guy who you spend that number 2 draft pick on. And as someone who has now watched a decent amount of Drake May on tape and anticipates him being the pick, but even if it's Jaden Daniels, I don't think either of those guys are going to succeed in year 1. And I think specifically with May, I think it could really hinder his development moving forward. Like, the things that he needs to clean up are things that you can learn from practice and being on the sideline and watching film in an NFL room versus like some other needs that you have. Like, he can be coached up on the footwork in practice every day. if he's out there playing, he's just going to try to survive. And I think you do get a risk of long-term development hindrance because he develops a lot of bad habits. And that's also why I'm concerned about Jaden Daniels. If he were to be the guy, it's not just he's thin and there's an injury risk. Like, yeah, it'd be nice to let him slowly put on another 10 pounds over the next year. But I also think, like, could he be better just tucking and running more often? Yes, but I don't necessarily want him doing that. If the game is too fast, you can have it slow down for you on the sidelines because you will see things on tape and it will be far more comfortable. Like, I would say if they draft someone second, I want them to get some snaps this year. That way they can get a taste and then they can know what it's like when they go back to the film room. But I don't think these guys are ready to play, and if they're not ready to play, they're not ready to play. And to me, then it doesn't really matter who's in front of you. But to some of you, it might. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Kurt, and then we'll get to more calls as we go throughout the hour. But Kurt, go ahead. You're with us on the Hoffman Show.
How you doing, Craig?
Doing good, Kurt.
I feel like a regular now.
You kind of are a regular now. You keep calling like this. That's how regulars work. You just keep showing up. We're like, yep, Kurt, table for one. Go to your table in the corner there. You want the usual? All right, excellent. Got your order up. What you got for us today, though, on this question?
I'm going to disagree with Tim a little bit because I think if you drafted top 5, you should play, but quarterback is the exception. Okay, if it was another position, absolutely. But quarterback, if he's not ready, I think he should sit. And with that said, I wish that Peters had put a couple more million out there and kept Brissett as opposed to Mariota, because he could have had that conversation with Brissett and said, listen, if we do draft a quarterback at 2 and we feel he's not ready, you're gonna have the ball. And I think that would have been enough to keep Brissett wanting to stay around. And I think it would have been a better situation for the team. But ultimately, when you're in a situation like that, you have 52 other players on that team. Okay, and this is these guys' livelihood. Okay, you can't just say, okay, well, we're going to throw this kid out there. We know he's not ready, but we're going to throw him out there because we just want baptism by fire.
Totally.
And you have 52 other players out here. Then you end up going to have 52 conversations with some other pros and say, listen, it's all about this guy. And
well, I mean, to be honest, Kurt, like that was kind of what happened last year with some of Rivera's conversations about Sam. Well, like, I think Sam was, obviously he showed some stuff earlier in the year. It wasn't like he was totally unprepared. But the way they kept talking about it, I was like, if I was someone else in that locker room, I'd be like, dude, this year ain't all about that kid. I like the kid, but come on. And so I think that's a great point. Kurt, appreciate the call as always. I mean, I think that you've got to look at it in the long-term lens. Ultimately, like, if you're drafting someone at 2, it's because you want them to be the franchise quarterback. What's the path that is most likely to get that person to be the franchise quarterback? And if they go out there and they struggle and they develop bad habits and their confidence gets wrecked and all those things, then you've now wasted that number 2 pick. And I think that's a pertinent piece of information. And at that point, it doesn't. And I'll say this about the Brissett thing. I've said this before, but I'll continue to say it. If Jacoby was an option, then they should have kept him. I don't know that he was an option. And the information about Brissett is sparse because he doesn't have an agent. Typically, agents are the ones who talk. Jacoby represents himself. So unless someone gets Jacoby on the phone and asks him the question, there is nobody outside of someone from the Commander's side who could tell you whether there was an offer made or what the conversation was like. There was no agent to play intermediary. But my bet would be that Brissett probably looked at New England and said, I got a better chance to start there than I do in D.C. I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe in D.C., even if it's different people. I just want a fresh start. I want to go back to New England. So I agree. I would rather have Brissett than Mariota, but I don't know that I can really put that on Peters because I don't know whether that was actually an option because Jacoby was a free agent and thus free to choose where he went. 301-230-0980. More calls on this next. What do you want to see from QB1 in 2024? 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show. Do we want to see the rookie quarterback start in 2024? Do we want to see a different plan for QB1 in 2024 and why. The end why, I think, is important. That is where I think there is room for reasonable people to disagree. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Ford in Florida to keep the calls going. Ford, thanks for listening. And you are on the Hoffman Show.
Craig, how are you?
I am good. I'm good.
Good. Hey, just wanted to frame it up for you a little bit here. I'm a 1981 Terp graduate and had season tickets to the Skins from 72 to 94. So give you a little clue on the demographic you're talking about. I'm a big DMV guy. What Peters is doing is amazing, right? He's building strong through the middle, defensively. And I'm going to answer your question, but defensively, right? Chin and Luvu and Wagner and our 2 D tackles, and then the guards in the center and our running backs. What's the hole that's missing up the middle is the QB, right? I don't know who they're going to pick. My hunch is probably May, but I don't know who they're going to pick. And while I've been on hold and listening to your other callers, maybe the hybrid approach is the best approach, right? It's maybe not what you're saying and not what some of the other callers are saying, but maybe you start Mariota for 4 or 6 weeks, whatever it takes for May or Daniels or whoever the new QB is to get more acclimated and to show more progress in practice during the weeks, et cetera, and then bring him in. I do think, as you had mentioned in your last caller, he does have to have some snaps under his belt this year, but I think it's more than just the last 2 games of the year. So I don't know how you feel about that, but it's kind of a hybrid of what you're saying and what your other callers have been saying.
Yeah, no, Ford, I think you've actually gotten to, and I appreciate the call, and thanks for checking in from down in Florida. I think you've gotten to kind of the heart of it, which is I don't have a hard answer in terms of numbers right now. What Ford has actually kind of uncovered there, if you will, is the correct answer to the question, which is it depends. It depends. Doesn't make for very touching sports talk radio because it's not a very emotionally driven, hard, definitive type of response. But the point is to get the guy ready to where he can go out and learning on the job is actually learning and not just getting your brains beaten in every week because it's the NFL and it's really hard and it's really fast. And if you're not prepared for that, you're not actually learning a whole lot. You're just getting your teeth kicked in. And so if you can get the rookie to a point where he can take some bumps and bruises that matter, that actually teach him some things, then yeah, he absolutely should. And if that takes an entire year, then great. Like, was there a point in Patrick Mahomes' rookie season, and this kind of goes back to, I think it was Tim, the first caller's point. Was there a point in Patrick Mahomes' rookie season where he was probably ready to go? Yeah. Do I think, Mahomes wound up playing 1 game his rookie season because the Chiefs had clinched their seat in the playoffs and clinched the division and all that, I think. Or maybe they clinched a wild card. They clinched whatever it was. The last game didn't matter. And so they put Mahomes out there and they're like, oh my God, this kid's probably going to be really good. But Alex had been the quarterback the entire year and Pat had learned a lot. Pat came out of Texas Tech as a freewheeling, no structure, playmaking maestro who put up insane numbers under Cliff Kingsbury, of all people, but was not ready to play in the NFL. And now he is both the best in structure and out of structure quarterback in the league. And he learned the in structure stuff in part because Alex Smith lived in structure. And so I think that because Alex was there, they probably were like, we're just going to roll with Alex. We're a playoff team, and we're not going to all of a sudden make a quarterback switch when we're 10-4 in the middle of a season in week 14, even if we think the kid's probably ready. That's different when Marcus Mariota is your starter. And if the season goes like I think a lot of us think it will, with Mariota as the starter. If 8 weeks into the season, the kid is ready to go, whoever the kid is, Daniels or May or McCarthy or Penix or Nix, or however they do go about this, then you should switch to the kid. It's not about being a hard number. It's about facing the reality that I don't think whoever they take is going to be ready to play NFL football in 2024 week 1. And what do we do with that piece of information? 301-230-0980. Let's go to Rob in Frederick. Rob, thanks for calling. Thanks for holding. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, I was going to say, we took Jason Campbell in the first round, and it wasn't even a second pick, but we gave up 2. They sat him for almost the entire year, and that didn't work out. Troy Aikman started his rookie season, got his teeth bashed in, and he turned out all right. I think it depends on the individual, personally, but that's just me.
No, you got something else for us, Rob?
I was just going to say, like I said, and that was one of the two examples I had. And like I said, that's when Gibbs was here the second time with Jason Campbell. And like I said, that didn't work out. So, yep.
Yeah, no, thanks, Rob. I think those are good examples because we talk a lot about the guys in the last 25 years. Obviously, Jason's that. But a guy like Aikman, sure, came in. The Cowboys were god-awful his rookie year. But Aikman was also like a pretty generational talent. So you probably were good that was going to work out eventually. But I also think like Troy's a good proof point. Like the situation around him got better. And all of a sudden he got Emmitt Smith and the best offensive line in the league and Michael Irvin. And suddenly Troy Aikman went from like, man, that rookie, is he gonna be a bust? To like, oh my God, Troy Aikman's an MVP candidate. Which, by the way, is hilarious to look back on. The game has changed so much. Like Troy Aikman barely completed like 50% of his passes in some of those years. Like Troy Aikman's career completion percentage, I feel like is like 52%, which is something that Troy like laughs at on broadcast now. He's like, these guys are so much better, or still at least so much more efficient than I was. And Troy's a 3-time Super Bowl champion and a Hall of Famer for a reason. He was one of the best of his era. But it does, I think, to Rob's point, depend on the individual. I don't know what the situation that Jason Campbell would have needed to succeed more than he did in his career. It'd be an interesting question to ask Jason. We do have him on the show sometimes, and we'll definitely have him back before the draft again. And, you know, that's a good question for him that I think I could Jason has been on the show enough times now, and we have enough mutual respect that I think I could ask it in a way that's not like, hey, dude, why'd your career not exactly why were you kind of not great? Like, it's really hard. Playing in the NFL is miserably difficult. And the bar is so high that there is some element to this of some people are just going to sink and some people are going to swim, and it's not going to matter. But I think more than that, there is a large group in the middle of guys who are definitely going to swim, your Andrew Lucks, your Peyton Mannings, your Troy Aikmans, etc., and guys who definitely were going to sink no matter what, Johnny Manziel. There's something in the middle, most quarterbacks that are dependent on the situation. They are totally dependent on whether they get the right coach, the right personnel around them. They either start because they needed to start, they sit because they needed to sit, and it is on the organization to ultimately understand the individual they're drafting and put them in that situation. And if that means that Marcus Mariota has to go into a suboptimal situation and start to make sure that Drake May is the guy in the long term, and Mariota's just got to eat it and be the mentor and play behind a middling offensive line, or whatever winds up being the reality of the 2024 Commanders, so be it. He's going to be well compensated to be a sacrificial lamb. And maybe that sacrifice is actually that he plays really well. And they're like 500 in the middle of the season or a game above, but they go, we think Drake's ready. Marcus, you've been pretty good. Sorry, man. Time to go to the bench. And that's his sacrifice. We'll see. 301-230-0980. What a problem that would be. Good quarterback play times 2. Would love it. What do you want to see out of QB1 in 2024? And let's go to Michael. Michael, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Thank you so much, man. I listen to the show all the time, but I'm a first-time caller.
Oh, welcome to the show, Michael. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So, first thing, let's just take Patrick Mahomes out the picture. How he came about being with the perfect coach, Hall of Fame coach, and everything. He's just something that is probably not going to come around for another 10 years, if that, because he's in the GOAT conversation already.
For sure.
When it comes, so I think you're right about building the way San Francisco built, right? You got to build around and get him all the pieces that he needs, right? And I think we're doing a good job of that so far. I think we need to add, some more weapons and stuff, but you build the team around him, right? And he's got to play. He's got to play. We got to have faith that Dan Quinn is going to put a comfortable line in front of him. They're not stupid. They're going to put a good line in front of him. They're going to give him weapons. And one of the main things that Dan Quinn said that impressed me when he became the coach is that he said he looks at players' strengths rather than their weaknesses. So the person they draft, they're not going to be stupid and come in here and use and play this rookie quarterback and have him doing things that he doesn't do well. But they're going to make sure of that, and we shouldn't ask that much of him. We shouldn't drop a lot on his plate, and if we get people schemed open, which Cliff Kingsbury is supposed to do, we scheme them open, and we bring them along slow, and we don't give them the full playbook. But I think that can work. A great defense, Dan Quinn has proven that he can coach a top 10 defense. And playing defense and stopping and running the ball, like you said earlier too, because I heard you say that earlier while I was waiting, running the ball, those things can work. It's all about the right fit. Certain people in the draft, if they would have went different places, they may have panned out. They didn't go to the right system or have the right coach to bring the best out of them. So right now, I feel like here in D.C., this is funny, I feel like we the woman that's been cheated on so much that when we get a good man, we still wondering. We got to have faith, man, that we got the right people in place and that they're going to make the right decisions. Up until this point, they've done nothing but proving us everybody wrong who think they're not. They made smart decisions. They've also, got young people. They got them for good prices. So I think they're doing the right thing, and I think we got to play them, man. It don't get no worse than what we was last year. I'm 45 years old. That was the worst I ever seen my team. That was horrible, man. It don't get no worse.
It was bad. I've been here since 2015, Michael, and that was the most painful season that I've covered. Appreciate the call, man. Call back anytime, and thanks for being a long-time listener. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you.
All right, that is Michael with us. We've got a couple more in a second. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's, like, whatever analogy you want to use, scorn lover, like, I always think of when I was a kid, Ant, our family dog. And this actually happened after I moved out of the house. But, like, the dog that we got when I was a kid, when my parents moved into their new house, Casper, because he was a little white dog, so like Casper, and we got him on Halloween, so Casper. He missed a step once coming up the back stairs into my parents' house, and like hit his little head, and obviously that didn't feel very good. Let out a little wail. He was fine, but he like had a fear of that step for the rest of his life. He like would bark and be like, "Dad, come get me. I can't go up this step. That's the one that hurt me." And then you'd literally either scooch his little butt up the steps, or you pick him up and you put him on the next step, and he'd run back into the house. But like, he's like, not there. And I feel like that step is the number 2 pick with quarterback in the crosshairs for the Washington Commanders, and even first-round quarterbacks, because of what has happened with the last X number of quarterbacks that have been taken here. But you got to trust that there are different people. And I think the biggest piece here is ownership. Like, obviously, Adam Peters is a better GM than they've had in God knows how long here. I think Dan Quinn understands the big picture better than any of the head coaches they've had here recently. But one thing that I think is also worth mentioning, Ant, is Josh Harris doesn't care what you think. And I don't mean you, Anthony, or me, Craig, or you, the listener, specifically. I mean all of us. Josh Harris has worked as a professional sports owner in Philadelphia, where his team wins 50 games a year every year, and the fans hate him. That dude doesn't care. He wants good, sound decision-making. And he will tell everybody, drown out the noise. I'll deal with that if I have to. You do the right thing. And I think that's really important, because the last owner was just an irrational fan, and that was like more irrational than anybody that has ever called this station, which is a high bar. And he would walk into meetings and be like, "We're doing this." And they'd be like, So you always had that in the back of your mind. Now, he's like, "Adam, I'm going to give you one directive. Do the right thing. Do what you think is best." It's all you can ask for out of an owner. Let's go to Kevin real quick. Kevin, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I think the pick should be Jaden Daniels, and I think they should start him right away. I mean, I like agency except for Mariota. I just think he's not very good. If they had gotten Jacoby Brissett or the fellow that went to Minnesota, whose name escapes me,
Darnold,
I feel more confident in letting the rookie quarterback sit for a while. But I don't understand Mariota because he has not produced very well in his last.
I mean, here's the thing, though. If you're going to bring up Sam Darnold, Kevin, like, respectfully, Marcus Mariota's career wipes Sam Darnold's off the map. Like, Darnold hasn't literally done anything. Mariota's had a couple of okay years, which I'm not telling you that Marcus Mariota's good. I'm telling you that he's better. He's been better than Sam Darnold. I understand that Darnold's a tantalizing talent, and I'm not even saying that I wouldn't necessarily want Darnold next year to like find out what he learned when he was with a year or in with Kyle for a year out in San Francisco. But like, you can't. Jacoby, I get. Ryan Tannehill, I get. I still would love to know what the Ryan Tannehill story is this offseason. But at the end of the day, like, this isn't about Mariota. And this is kind of, I think, a good place to end because I think this is the point. This isn't about 2024. I know that's not super fun because 2023 was a lost year and is lost, as Michael was saying earlier, the caller, like, that was the most miserable year I've ever covered because the games didn't matter. We all knew what was up. We all knew the score. And because the NFL dragged its feet in getting Dan out of town, there was nothing Josh Harris could do about Ron Rivera. And especially when that went sideways and like the money was all tied up, like it couldn't be aggressive in free agency. Like they were screwed last year systemically and because they had a bad coaching staff. And we all knew that coaching staff was getting axed and we just had to wait it out. And this year, it's a different kind of it doesn't matter about 2024. This year, it's about, hey, they're going to be able to compete because of their defense. They're going to be a lot more physical and a lot more competitive, and there'll be a team you can at least be proud of because when they take the field every week, they hadn't already lost. And with that said, quarterback's probably going to hold them back to an extent or to a large extent. And if Mariota's put in a position where he doesn't have to do a whole lot, maybe they can compete and be around 500 and let's see what happens with the rest of the division and the rest of the NFC. And if not, then okay. But it's not about Mariota and how good or not he is. It's about whether Jaden Daniels or Drake May or JJ McCarthy or whoever they wind up getting in the first round at quarterback, how ready they are. And you have to separate those two things and say it ain't about the vet. And it ain't about right now. It's about the kid. Because if we get the kid right, in a couple of years, we'll be serious contenders, Super Bowl contenders. And if we mess it up, then none of us will be here because we're all getting fired, and that kid's career will suck, and everybody else that's around, their career is also going to take a big hit. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Thanks, everyone who called in. If you didn't get in today, we got a Vibe Check Tuesday starting at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We got another fun question planned about Dan Quinn. And I'll even tell you guys now. Basically, we're going to say, like, all these free agents that have come and we see the connections to the previous coaching staff. Has your mind changed about Dan Quinn? That's the question we're going to tackle in our Vibe Check Tuesday tomorrow starting at 4 o'clock. Michael Phillips joins us next, though, here on the Team 980.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.